now it works. Now it's working fine. All right, so this is the September 3rd, 2024 morning work session of the Portland City Council. Thanks everybody for being here. Nearly 4 years ago, this council convened a work session to discuss the biggest challenges facing our city in the wake of the COVID pandemic, and we set clear priorities for our city. As you'll recall, the years of the pandemic were not particularly kind to us. Portland, the downtown area, was deserted. Our homeless crisis was escalating rapidly. Crime was on the rise. And frankly, so is distrust between the community and the police in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. On that day in January 2021, our City Council unanimously established our 4 policy areas that we believed collectively would have the greatest impact for the community that we're elected to serve: homelessness and livability, public safety, and economic recovery. This weekend, I had the opportunity to look back on our conversation from that work session. And Commissioner Ryan, you said something that really stood out to me. You said, no matter what our bureau assignments are, we know that we're accountable to these top priorities. And that's the truth. Collectively, we have been accountable to those priorities. Today's a bookend to that work session. It's an opportunity in part to reflect on our progress, to in part fine-tune our priorities for the remainder of this year, and to provide collective wisdom that I'm hoping we can pass along to the incoming City Council as well as the new administration under Portland's new form of government. All of you have had the opportunity to lead bureaus as the executive in charge. All of you have had to make tough decisions. You've had to weigh competing options, and I don't want to just lose that expertise. It's important what you have led through and what messaging you can provide to the future. Today we're going to hear short presentations from our city leadership team. They actually practiced this last week to cut out anything that was extraneous. Then we have a professional facilitator here this morning. We have Meredith Hawley of Eris Conflict Resolution. She'll guide our conversation in service of developing a wrap-up report to hand off to Portland's future leaders. I want to kick us off by saying how grateful I am for the passion and the expertise of each of you, my colleagues and your staff. What you've brought specifically to advancing our shared priorities, and frankly, how proud I am of the progress we've made together. No, we do not always agree, but I believe the Portland City Council has been highly functional under your leadership. You've worked together, you've tried to troubleshoot problems collectively. By and large, we've agreed on the matters that are of the most importance to the city. Today, the City of Portland operates more than 600 shelter units and offers innovative support to people experiencing homelessness. We'll be up to 800 by the end of this year. That is all new, thanks to you. We've brought together neighborhoods to get rid of graffiti, reduce litter, create murals, plan events, and we've created new programs in order to do that. That is thanks to you. We've significantly reduced crime, including homicides and shooting, through new programs both within the Police Bureau and within the community and an Office of Violence Prevention and other programming. Again, that is thanks to you. And we've laid the groundwork for catalytic new development from the Broadway corridor to the OMSI campus. And that is work that has been hard fought and will need to continue well into the future. While our strategies are working, our work is far from done. Over the next few months, we'll pass the baton to or be joined by new leaders who are ready to continue advancing these priorities. I look forward to our conversation today. And with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for taking the time today. I'm sure this will be a rich discussion. We're going to take, as the Mayor said, a little time to reflect on the high priorities that you set a few years back, have some short presentations for you, about 10 to 12 minutes each, on 3 different priority areas. We've consolidated one of them, and I'll get to that in the next slide. We're going to fly at a pretty high altitude today. It does not prevent you from asking any questions you wish, of course. But those presentations are really, I guess, the opening act for this agenda. What we'd really like is your thoughts, both on the priorities and how we're doing and what we should be focusing on going forward. But particularly, as the mayor noted, you have years of experience doing this in the chair. And we're going to have a whole bunch of new people in those chairs in January. And so any wisdom that you can give to us as we try to execute your agenda, but also to those new electeds as they take office.
Mike, could I just jump in?
Sure.
And one thing I should have said, I didn't complete my talking point. So we're going to have about 10 minutes presentation in each area. The rest is open to, in each of the 3 areas. Mm-hmm. The rest is open discussion. This work session is not about the transition. We're having a separate work session.
Next week. I was just going to mention that.
That
Mayor.
will
Thank
encompass, Commissioner Ryan, the questions that you asked, good questions around constituent services. So that will be a completely separate discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you for the transition, Mayor. As you can see on the slide, we are a city in transition. We're about 65 days into our shakedown cruise, if you will, the last 6 months of 2024, trying to work out the kinks in a new organizational structure. But that's not all we're doing. We're also dealing with voter education, preparing to onboard the new electeds, and get ready for them to show up in this kind of historic change for the city. And as the mayor just noted, we will have a full work session on that a week from today. And then what we're here for today, as we transition, can you go to the next slide, please? As we work through the transition of the city goes on. And the issues are still there, both challenges and opportunities that we are attempting to both face those challenges and capture those opportunities as we speak. Today, as I said, you'll hear some updates. We're going to fly at a pretty high altitude, and it's a chance for us to step back on all the progress we've made over the last few years, and also, I think, get again, your thoughts on the challenges we face and how a new council and mayor can face those going forward. With that, the 3 areas we're going to talk about today are homelessness and livability, public safety and economic recovery. We'll have short presentations, as I said, on these issues. They are not meant to be exhaustive reports. They're not meant to say everything we're doing. Again, we'll fly at a pretty high altitude. And at the end, welcome your comments, thoughts, and any wisdom you can give us on how we should move forward. The world has changed over 4 years. You've been there to witness all of it, but you may have formulated some thoughts about how we could do better, and we'd love to hear those as we go. I'm going to start today off with a presentation from Skylar Brocker-Knapp on the homelessness and livability section.
Mike,
yes?
Also just suggest first change this room, if we're going to have meetings, needs a monitor so the council can actually see what's being presented. Skylar, we have the hard copy. Can you just let us know what slide we are on?
Absolutely. Mayor and Commissioners, Skylar Brocker-Knapp, Director of Portland Solutions. I'm going to go through just at a high level some of our goals for the next few months, some of our recent accomplishments and some of our challenges, just to reiterate something that Mike Jordan just mentioned. This is not an exhaustive list of everything that we're working on. These are just some highlights. So happy to answer questions at the end of all the presentations on any things that aren't mentioned or that we do mention, but I just want you to know this is not the only work that's being done. All right, so homelessness and livability. Our challenges, just at a high level, you're all aware, but as the mayor mentioned, it definitely escalated during the pandemic, both homelessness in general and especially unsheltered homelessness, due to a CDC shelter-in-place order, as well as many other issues. Some of those root causes, as I'm sure you're all aware, are behavioral health issues, lack of housing, income inequality, et cetera. And neighborhoods, as a consequence, were impacted by camps, garbage, graffiti, other livability hazards as well. Next slide, please. I'm on slide 6. Recent accomplishments, just at a high level, are the Homelessness Response Action Plan was adopted between the city and the county. We also, as the mayor mentioned, have 648 shelter units that are currently provided just by the city of Portland. That's in addition to Multnomah County's shelter, as well as some private shelter in the area. We have over 10 artistic murals that were placed through our Public Environment Management Office around Portland in partnership with a local artist collective. We've also removed 11.5 million pounds of litter just through our impact reduction program. So that's in addition to the haulers and all our traditional trash removal processes within the city. We also have 156% year-over-year increase in customers served at the new day storage site that the city provides through Central City Concern. Next slide, please. Slide 7. Just going to go through some quick highlights for the next few months. We're going to, in addition to those 648 units, add 220 spaces to city shelters. So that includes 150 of those tiny homes or pods, as well as 70 RV spaces. This is something that is deeply needed in our community, and we're really excited to be able to provide spaces for folks who are living in RVs to get connected to resources as well as utilities, and then transition into a pod and or eventually permanent housing. We'll serve approximately 1,000 people on any given night once these all come online for all of our city shelter sites. These all include wraparound services, as you're all well aware, so that includes different medical care, so physical care, as well as behavioral health services. That includes mental health services. We even have a psychiatric nurse that comes to our different sites and is able to prescribe medication. That's in partnership with Central City Concern, as well as some workforce development services and housing resources. Next slide, please. Slide 8, we, as I mentioned, have been picking up a lot of litter around town. So through the impact reduction program, we're going to pick up more than 5 million pounds of trash or litter in the next few months. That's 30,000 pounds of trash picked up each day on average. That's throughout the entire city, and it really includes some workforce development programs and partnerships that I just want to highlight. So that includes Trash for Peace, Glitter, CCC's Clean Start program. That's for folks who are in recovery to really get back into the workforce. And so those partnerships we're really proud of, helping support folks who are getting back into the workforce. Next slide, please. Thank you. We're also going to light the city. So this is part of our kind of CEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design programs through the Public Environment Management Office. We are lighting trees in all 4 districts. I'm sure you've all seen lights in parks and along streets, but we are being asked to increase that because it actually does lead to a decrease in crime, less nefarious activity if the streets are lit, especially at night. So we're also adding different sculptures and artistic designs. You'll see the image on the right-hand side of a sculpture that's in downtown Portland on Harvey Milk. We're also really excited about some partnerships with Portland State, New Seasons, the Central East Side Industrial Council, and Multnomah County to light different areas throughout the city. So PSU's campus, as well as underneath a lot of the bridges. So in partnership with Multnomah County, we're going to light some of those viaducts under the Hawthorne, Morrison, and Burnside bridges in the next few months. We're also going to fund 7 additional new murals throughout the city. These are in partnership with the relevant communities that have asked for them on different buildings and areas that have historically needed some beautification. And so we're excited to partner with local artists and a local artist collective on all of those different murals. I'm sure you've seen them around town, but people really appreciate them, and so we're getting a lot of asks to increase those murals throughout the city. It also ensures that they stay beautiful on the side of buildings, and we don't have any other designs or paints going up. We're also doing this in coordination with our problem solver meetings. So these are 16 meetings throughout the entire city that happen every other week. They came out of the 90-day resets that I'm sure you all remember in Old Town and the Central East Side that were really popular with those communities, really mobilizing all of our relevant resources and asking community members what they need in their specific community, and then bringing those resources to bear, being immediately responsive to different things that they might need, whether it's litter pickup or structural design or removing graffiti. We also help with different behavioral health or outreach coordination in that specific area. So really immediately responsive and bringing all the resources of the city to bear every other week at those different problem solver meetings. Next slide, please. I'm on slide 11. So we're also increasing coordination and transparency through these programs and integrating them within the bureaucracy, given our new form of government. So that led to our launch a couple months ago of Portland Solutions. This includes the Impact Reduction Program, the Street Services Coordination Center, PMO, and shelter services. So you'll see on the right-hand side, this is our map of all the different 16 problem solver meetings within each of the 4 districts. So again, we meet every other week with all these different groups. They include business districts, neighborhood associations, and then any member of that community is welcome to participate. It's an open invitation. We've also streamlined a lot of our services, especially through the Impact Reduction Program over the last few years. We're looking to bring that same efficiency and service level to PBOTS, RV, and abandoned auto removal. So we're working really closely with Deputy City Administrator Jayapal, and we're working on making sure that that process works the same way kind of that our impact reduction program works. So I know you've all seen kind of the increase in our services in terms of camp removals and our dashboard within the impact reduction program. This will be something that we do similarly within PBOT and with that VIT team. We're also aligning around those 4 districts. So we know that that transition was happening, and we wanted to make sure that all of our problem solver meetings and also all of our work was outlined kind of for all 4 districts. And then we're going to make it clear what we're doing in each of our neighborhoods, but also in each of our districts for our new city councilors. We're also improving technology. So I mentioned that Impact Reduction Program dashboard. You'll see just a screenshot on the right-hand side. Community members have really appreciated being able to interact with that in real time and see what areas are posted for removal, what areas have been removed. It has before and after pictures. It also has all the trash that we're removing. And so folks can see the work that's being done in their community. We would like to expand on that, as I mentioned. So we're going to be integrating the PBOT work and all of our vehicle removal work kind of into that dashboard in a more efficient manner. We've also created a detox availability app. This was born out of the 90-day fentanyl emergency. The city of Portland just decided to create it because outreach workers asked for it. And so we worked with the 4 relevant detox providers within the city of Portland, as well as one in Vancouver that wanted to participate to create real-time daily availability of detox beds. And so our outreach workers that work throughout the city are able to look at that kind of Google app and see green light, red light. Is there a bed available? Is there not a bed available? And all the specifications for that detox center and who can actually participate and whether they can actually bring someone to that bed that day. We also created a 311 street outreach request tool. The community really wanted to be able to say, hey, somebody needs help near me. How do I actually get them some real help? Instead of calling 911, they can actually call 311 or actually fill out an online form is the most effective way. And our city outreach team keeps track of all of those requests, and then we'll actually go out and visit that individual. They also keep track of when people submit updates to that location, whether they've moved, and then they keep track of that individual, and I've been able to connect them to services and get them into shelter or whatever the relevant service is. We're also creating a public-facing graffiti dashboard. So that'll be in partnership with a lot of our city colleagues that are doing this work, as well as our various tech teams, and we're looking to actually add some other livability aspects to that dashboard. So we'll start with graffiti, but we know people really want to know about all different livability aspects and be able to interact with it the same way they interact with the Impact Reduction Program dashboard. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Director Mike Myers and Director Stephanie Howard.
Is there any way we can
Thank you.
troubleshoot the sound here?
But I just asked them about that. I think one of the issues is don't get too close to those microphones. Okay? Because I think that's one of the issues.
Another thing I noticed is I had myself muted in the Zoom, but I didn't have my computer muted, the output speaker, and that helped it over here. So I'm not sure if anyone else who has computers might have their output speaker.
So you came over to me. What am I supposed to do?
You just hit mute on the computer so that the output speaker is also muted. It's already muted.
It's
So I
not
noticed
intuitive. That's
there
why.
was- Yeah, totally.
Tech support, the sound people say that if we move this table forward about a foot, then you won't get all the echo from back here. Apparently you hear the echo of yourself speaking.
little late for
louder
that.
than this, so just FYI.
So Jill reports that next time you should have the table about a foot that way. To whoever does that, thanks.
Okay, good. And Mike, just to be, so are we going to go through all three presentations then?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Good.
Mike.
Ready, team? Good morning, Mayor, Council. Good morning, City Administrator Michael Jordan. My name is Mike Myers. I'm the Deputy City Administrator for the Public Safety Service Area. And to my left is my co-presenter, Stephanie Howard, who's the Director and Advisor of Public Safety to Mayor Wheeler. And we'll be sharing a few points with you today around public safety. And we're going to start on slide 13. Although we've seen a significant decrease in gun violence over the past couple of years, it still continues to be a challenge. In fact, there were 46 injury victims, 8 homicides, and 38 non-fatal injuries recorded in July 2024 of just this year. This is the most shooting victims we've seen in a single month in 2 years. More concerning is 8 of those non-fatal injury victims in 2024 were youth less than 18 years of age, and since we've been collecting data in 2019, we've not seen a rate that high in youth victims. So it still continues to be a challenge, although we have had tremendous successes. Stephanie, you want to talk a little bit about House Bill 4002?
Thank you. Just very briefly, and I think we're back a slide actually. Just very briefly, that as you all know, you heard a work session last week on the county's deflection program. Decriminalization of drugs, possession of small amounts of drugs went into effect on Sunday. PPB has been enforcing that so far, and I will be collecting data and reporting to you all on what that looks like. Go ahead, Mike.
So as you know, the public perception of safety is very important to our residents and, of course, us here in the city of Portland. The public perception of safety crosses all of our bureaus in the public safety area. When people call 911, they want their call answered quickly. When they need an ambulance, they expect one to arrive quickly. When they want to feel safe when they're walking around the streets of Portland. These are all significant challenges with public safety, and every one of these items are on our work plan for 2024. Staffing shortages, you will hear this in both the public and private sector across the city of Portland. Certainly you'll hear it here in the public safety service areas today. It continues to be a challenge. Next slide. We're on slide 14. So as I said, we have significant challenges in gun violence, specifically gun-related homicides, but gun-related homicides are down. Our goal, if you recall, back when we declared the emergency in 2021, was to reduce gun violence and gun-related homicides by 10% year over year. We are exceeding that by 20% or greater, and total shootings are down 21%, and specifically in young black men, we're seeing a greater reduction of greater than 30% in gun-related homicides. Emergency communications, that's been in the news recently regarding the call wait times for communications. We started the year around a 60-second wait time for 911 calls. That has been significantly reduced in the first 8 months of work under Director Causey's leadership. My last discussion with him, we're down to 37 seconds. And of course, there is a budget note for us to continue to look at overtime with fire and rescue. I am happy to report for the first time in a couple of years, we have stabilized at least callback overtime, and we've started to see a decrease. Next slide, slide 15. So keeping with Portland Fire and Rescue, as I said, we have 2 major items with the budget notes this year. One is to land a balanced budget for you with Portland Fire and Rescue at the end of the year, and the other one is to see a consistent reduction in overtime, and I'd like to report both of those are performing nicely. The last item, the new AMR contract, I believe, had we not had the involvement of Chief Gillespie and the team around him to be very stern with our county partners around getting a change in the AMR contract, we would not see that development. And I'm very happy to report that that new contract opportunity exists today. Slide 16. So Bureau of Communications, their call wait times, as I reported, is reducing. That is a direct relation to Director Causey's ability to recruit and staff, and he's been doing a good job and has a good plan to continue that through 2024. The final item is accreditation. There are very few accredited 911 centers around the world. If we're able to accomplish this, I think this will be a huge feat. His plan is to be accredited by the end of the year. Next slide. And I'll turn this over to Stephanie Howard to talk a little bit about Office of Violence Prevention and the Portland Police Bureau.
Thank you, Mike. So with regard to the Office of Violence Prevention, we've had some changes in leadership at the office, and we're currently collecting community input and working to develop a new and updated job description for the incoming director based on what the community is telling us they like to see and based on the work that we have seen positive results from. And so we're eager to have that person, on board and helping to shape the vision for the future of the Office of Violence Prevention. As I mentioned, the office has been doing a tremendous amount of community engagement, not just regarding the director, but we are also looking to try to identify what the community would like to see in terms of services, in terms of how OVP shows up in the community. This picture actually is from a great work session that we had in this very room a couple of weeks ago, with lots of community members from community-based organizations that work with OVP, and there's a lot of work going into collecting and aggregating the input we received. Thanks to this council, the Office of Violence Prevention has seen the best funding and the most adequate funding it has seen since its inception. And we recognize that there is a great deal of funding that came from one-time dollars, and OVP is working to spend down those ARPA dollars so that we can really lean into exactly what the budget needs are of the office going forward, and in hopes of trying to address any gaps and maintain the positive momentum that we've received so far. While it's not in the Office of Violence Prevention, the Portland Ceasefire Program is related, and as I think you all have heard at various work sessions, Portland Ceasefire Program, very small program that helps to bridge between law enforcement and community-based outreach to target the folks who are at highest risk of either being victimized or perpetrating gun violence in the community. Next slide. Slide 18. I will not belabor this point. You all heard from Chief Dave just last week at his presentation of the annual report regarding his priorities, but just to touch on them very briefly, number one, reducing crime and the fear of crime, and the chief has been effectuating that through a lot of mission-based work, including stolen vehicle missions, retail theft missions, street takeover missions, and drug enforcement missions. So there's a great deal of work there that will continue. Another priority for the chief is to help develop the organization and create leadership opportunities from within. He's doing a great deal of investment in that sort of middle strata of officers that are the up-and-coming future of the Bureau to try to really invest in their leadership and make sure that they are receiving the right training, the right enrichment to become those leaders that we'd all like to see. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, transforming the dynamic between the police and the community. One key to that, I think from our perspective and certainly from the chief's perspective, is compliance with the DOJ settlement agreement, reaching that, fulfilling that agreement, and ultimately, ending the agreement because we're managing that on our own, as well as increasing community engagement directly. And I think with former chief, now Assistant Chief Lavelle at the head of their community engagement arm within the chief's office, we're seeing a big uptick in the amount of community engagement among police officers. I think as the chief mentioned last week, there was a 500% increase based on the tracking. And so that's probably just representative of the increased tracking, but it's exactly the kind of thing that we want to know so that we can really assess just how the community is engaging with our police force. Mike?
Yep. We're on slide 19. This will be the final slide. As you can see, we have a few statistics for you, and looking just the first few months of Chief Day's administration. He's been with us a very short time. Chief Day is in the process of putting down a written crime reduction plan, but he's had one, in his mind for quite some time. I think we're seeing really good results out of Chief Day's administration and the work that he's been doing in the first 8 months of this year. We see significant reductions in some of these key performance indicators compared to 2023, and then you also see the 3-year average. So I'm very proud to have this slide represented on for Chief Day's work to this point. I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce Donnie Oliveira, who's the Deputy City Administrator for Economic Development Service Area, and he'll be talking with you about economic recovery. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Good morning, Council. Don Oliveira for the record. Got some friends with me to dive into this next section. So next slide, please. All right, next slide. Thank you. So as the mayor alluded to at the beginning of the presentation, the city of Portland did not see the same post-pandemic economic rebound that other major cities in the United States did. Some of those issues were real, and some of them were perceived and reputational. So over the course of the next 10 minutes, we're going to sort of discuss sort of the high-level response that the city of Portland has endeavored upon and will be endeavoring upon in the next several months, but obviously going forward to address those challenges. And there are many. Many of you have experienced this walking across the city. You've seen the reports and the studies. We have a lot of work to do. You can see that in terms of downtown vacancy rates, not just in downtown, frankly, but across our commercial corridors around the city. Our small business community, our large business community need help. And also housing development and access to housing are inextricably linked to economic prosperity, not just in people having safe places to live, of course, but frankly, housing development generates jobs for our trades. It spurs confidence from investors, and frankly, it builds a sense of thrivingness and prosperity. I want to acknowledge that you all just adopted the housing production strategy last week. Thank you very much, Council. But there's so much more work to be done, not just in addressing building out of housing, but the resiliency of our infrastructure. I'm now going to turn over to my colleague, Andrew Fitzpatrick, for some deeper dives into the challenging financial environment.
Good morning. Just wanted to add to what Donnie said, that obviously the city of Portland faces a number of national macro headwinds that relate to high interest rate environment that the rest of the country faces, as well as inflationary pressures on construction, on small businesses, on households throughout Portland. We're focused on addressing those issues, but addressing them obviously on the local level, understanding that some of them are external to us and affecting us in various ways. Outmigration is a continued concern, as we've all tracked some of those numbers out of Portland and out of Multnomah County, and we know that the tax value proposition is a key consideration in some of that movement of people outside of our jurisdiction. As our focus is really on the policy levers and the programs that we can deliver in the next 3 months and change that will speed our recovery and then usher in a new era of inclusive job creation and economic growth. And we also, of course, acknowledge that the safety and livability concerns that were just articulated and that were being aggressively addressed by this council are major considerations and factors in how people see the tax value proposition and living in our city. So we know that this strategy is interlinked to those efforts as well, but we want to focus on getting the economics right here in the city so that we continue to grow jobs in an inclusive fashion here locally.
Thanks, Andrew. We're not going to spend too much time here, but I do want to acknowledge that over the last year and a half or so, we've seen some important milestones in the city related to housing development. You got the presentation on the housing bond and how it exceeded its goals. I also want to acknowledge that the creation of the Permitting and Development Bureau was really important for us to not just be ready for today, but to prepare for when that influx of resources comes back and those investments come back to Portland, we're ready to catch it. Anecdotally speaking, I want to share that as we sit here today, there are 2,000 units of permitted housing that the Permitting Bureau has greenlit that are ready to go. They just have not been pulled because the financial markets are not there to make those buildings real. So as we get prepared to see this, the interest rates come down, we're seeing some hope that the development boom will kick into Portland like it has in other places, but we have to be ready to catch that, and getting the Permitting Development Bureau up and running was a priority for that. Another big milestone I want to just really flag, and I think Andrew's going to dive into it a little deeper, is the City of Portland adopted, thank you, Council, our current economic strategy, which is called Advance Portland. We launched that this past year. We've already seen some real gains on that, but that is really the North Star for where we want to go, not just to rebound, but also to build for the future Portland.
And related to the population dynamic, the core insight, as you all know from Advance Portland, was really that we cannot take our economic growth in the city of Portland for granted. We have to take a series of intentional steps in order to compete across a number of different industry clusters that we think we are competitive in or could be competitive in, both nationally and globally. So we have several different clusters that Advance Portland focuses on. And it really is a business plan that is meant to set out a series of specific actions that our city can take to compete in those areas. Looking back just over the past year plus since this was adopted, there are a number of concrete achievements that the Advanced Portland Framework has already made, which include things like the creation of the business license tax credit to incentivize commercial lease renewals and extensions and drive positive foot traffic in our central city, as well as the expansion of the enterprise zone to retain and attract high-quality jobs in our city. And then more recently, the establishment of an economic impact assessment as part of the legislative process that would inform your considerations on the current council and then future city council considerations around how legislation passed affects the economy, housing production, small businesses, and other things that we would care to consider in a more formalized way with respect to consequences of legislation that's adopted by this council.
Thanks, Cedric. Next slide, please. So given the national dilemmas that we're facing, what can the city of Portland do? What are we doing? So first and foremost, we're going to be leaning in on Central City in terms of our investments and the attention we give as a city. I'm going to acknowledge that the Public Works Service area, the Vibrant Community Service area, frankly, all service areas have been working with us to think about how we address those larger developments that are going to really generate interest, not just on the day-to-day, but that Portland's back and ready for development. So very soon you'll see a term sheet for the OMSI master plan. That'll be coming to council tomorrow. You'll see some other big milestones related to the Keller and the Montgomery Park streetcar extension, which will unlock housing in our Northwest. You all adopted and approved the Lower Albina Rose Quarter Reconnecting Communities grant that was led by PBOT. And these sort of catalytic projects are necessary to not just show that investors that Portland's back at it, but we actually need to get our labor force and our workforce groups activated and ensure that they have capacity. So they need that runway to know what we're prioritizing. I think that's the key takeaway here is Central City investments are really important, not just for the downtown area, but it also generates the jobs, those good middle wage jobs that keep Portlanders thriving. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, DCA Donapal. Oh, sorry, there's one more slide. Thank you. My mistake. And to that note, we just want to acknowledge there's some important regulatory improvements that we've been working on. The post-permitting development bureau creation, the permit improvement task force continues to invest in our process improvements to ensure that our permitting processes are getting those jobs greenlit faster so we can keep going. We're going to be doing some code cleanup across the service areas. And the thing that I think you can see in real time today is the web platform and how people access our city is already so much more streamlined, and I think you're going to start to see more customer satisfaction in how they get through a permitting process because they know where to go. Yeah.
Thank you, DCA Oliveira. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Priya Dhanapal, DCA for Public Works, and if you're following on the printout, we're on slide number 24. Today, I will be highlighting some of the critical work that Public Works Service area is contributing to the Portland's economic recovery. We are investing nearly $1 billion in large capital improvement investments this year, which will help create jobs and also support various businesses. Major streetscape investments like the 82nd Avenue major infrastructure, maintenance and paving project improves accessibility and safety, but also supports businesses along the corridor as well as improving the critical goods movement. We're also supporting lower income users by improving financial assistance through a number of discount programs. This will better allocate financial assistance dollars to have the biggest impact on vulnerable populations. An example is the Water and BES Smart Discount pilot program happening this year. And we also have the community opportunities and enhancement programs that sets aside 1% of hard construction costs towards workforce development and business technical assistance grants to increase diversity and equity in public contracting. PBOT is continuing to enhance public spaces and contribute to businesses and public space activation by supporting businesses through outdoor dining and plazas. They're continuing to partially subsidize outdoor dining costs through 2024, end of the year, and are developing a permanent plaza program proposal that will be brought to you for approval. And finally, in addition to the Near Me Now wayfinding work done through PMO, PBOT, in partnership with Travel Portland, and after significant business and community engagement, is now finalizing Walk Portland wayfinding project recommendations aimed at improving pedestrian navigation and exploring downtown. These investments and programs are not only improve infrastructure and enhance public spaces, but also helps create jobs, supports local businesses, provides vital financial assistance and business development resources, fostering a resilient and equitable local economy. With that, I pass it on to my colleague, DCA Oliveira.
Thank you, Priya. So building off of the investments that the Public Works Service area is leading, you all are familiar with the Portland Clean Energy Fund's investments. This past year, Council greenlit $350 million in Bureau investments for climate action projects. That allows us to invest in our infrastructure, but again, it's that job capacity that's really important. That tomorrow you'll be seeing the next round of community grants to the tune of about $90 million. And then later this fall, there'll be another $150 million that is really public-private partnership for big projects. Think infrastructure around transportation, think infrastructure around schools. Those are the types of projects that are really catalytic for not just climate justice, but frankly for our workforce. The point being is while we wait for private investments to come back to Portland, we can show by example how we're putting our dollars to work effectively and efficiently.
And also excited to say that another huge public investment tool that we're looking forward to recreating and reestablishing are 6 different TIF districts, 3 in East Portland and 3 in the Central City, which we believe will unleash over $2 billion in public investment to lead affordable housing, economic development activities for small business, placemaking, and other key revitalization efforts that the city can help to lead. So steering committees that were made up of community members approved all 6. Last week, the Prosper Board of Commissioners approved unanimously all 6 TIF districts as well, and then they'll be coming to City Council for your consideration in October of this year. So really tight timeline, and appreciate your leadership and Prosper Portland's work with other key bureaus to make that happen on a tight timeline. We believe that's a key tool going forward for the future.
Next slide, please.
TIF also was something that came out of Advanced Portland in terms of emphasizing the need as a public investment tool. There's a few other things that will continue to be worked on and prioritized under that framework over the coming months. The Office of Small Business is something else that's being created right now. The manager position is actually being hired for as we speak, and that will be a helpful navigation tool, resource identifier from the city to actually bring in intake small businesses to help them navigate city processes, identify resources, and grow. Office to residential conversion is another area where we're going to continue to look at offering incentives, offering regulatory support, permitting support for these types of projects that will help to drive new investment in vacant spaces, create more housing in a sustainable fashion, especially in the Central City. The Clean Industry Initiative also relates to what DCA Oliveira said about PSEF funding. We hope to be able to continue to invest in the Clean Industry Initiative by launching the hub this fall and then driving other investments into decarbonizing growing sectors in our economy. And then last, positive activation of downtown and business corridors through subsidizing events. If you think about Rockstar Energy, that was successful for skateboarding a couple weeks ago, the Montevilla Jazz Festival, which just happened, and then other even smaller events like the Kickstart Comedy Festival in Laurelhurst Park that just happened last weekend and is happening next weekend. A lot of those are done through city partnerships, either financial or regulatory support that go into the event producers to drive visitors, to drive even activation from local residents and businesses as well.
Thanks, Andrew. So if you look at Advanced Portland, last point on this is we're simultaneously providing support to our existing businesses to make sure they can rebound, but simultaneously thinking about what's next for the city of Portland. What's our future state? What is the reputation we have today, whether it be athletic apparel, food and beverage, clean tech, and how do we boost the signals of those emergent industries in our city? And that wraps our section. Thank you.
And before we get into the process here, I want to be very clear. This is a chance for the executive team to tell you what they're working on between now and the end of the year. None of it's in stone. So truly we're looking for right track, wrong track. Are there true ups or there are revisions we should make? We just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Great.
I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So we're going to go over a set of 4 questions. I think you all got them ahead of time, but even if you didn't, they're up on the board. They should be on some paperwork that you have, and I will read them to you. What I'd like to do, because I want to be respectful of your time, is just go through and sort of have everyone give a brief answer, and then we can have a discussion about them. The first question is, what opportunities do you see for new administrators and elected officials to advance these priorities? I'd like to start with Commissioner Mapps and then go down the row, if we can do it that way.
First, I want to thank staff for their presentation and their day-to-day work in these areas. I am encouraged to see the progress that, well, actually, I'm going to just push back. I don't like the format of where we're at here a little bit. If this is partly intended to be a message to future councils, I think one of the things that's really important to note is that our current jobs of these commissioners, or the jobs that this commission has had, it's going to be very different from the jobs that are coming in here. So as we put this together, I hope that we're aware of that. You know, part of what we do as commissioners is to, historically, has been to manage bureaus. Now a lot of those responsibilities live over with the deputy city administrators, and part of what we do is set broad goals. And then I think we hold, moving forward, I think we hold our city administrators and ourselves accountable for reaching those goals. Portland has never lacked for great ideas. We are one of the most innovative cities in the nation, if not the world. Indeed, I think that's very much why I am here. It made my life in public service in Portland, because it's an inspiring place to be. Certainly, I think one of the things moving forward, and one of the realities of our moment, is that we have not been a great city at implementing ideas, and that is the challenge moving forward. And you know, I can speak. I have complete confidence that the folks who sit in these chairs moving forward will be visionary. I think one of the things I want to do is talk to the deputy city administrators and the city administrator to my right here, and say where I think we need to be much better moving forward is actually turning our goals into realities. I think we have the tools there. You know, I'll tell you, I believe our budget numbers when we get there, you know. But all too often in this city, when we face a major problem, whether it be the environment or violence or housing, we say, let's throw a whole bunch of money at that problem, and then we go, look at us, we've done such a good job. You can tell how committed we are to this problem. However, as we see far too often, actually translating that into actually meeting our goals, there's a gap there, and I hope that we begin to focus in on that.
That's an interesting observation. So it sounds like what you're saying,
And I'll turn my microphone on, is one of the main opportunities is in implementation and in that translation of money and ideas into actual reality. Is that?
Yeah, I would say that is the core challenge of this moment in Portland's history.
Yeah.
People think Portland's a contentious town, but actually it's not. Mostly people agree on what we want and where we want to go. We're kind. We want to take care of everybody. We want to end homelessness and violence. But what we haven't, and we have made enormous investments in all of that, what we have not done a great job of consistently over time, although I will credit the mayor, the mayor's team, he's really turned things around in the last couple of years. We haven't done a good job of turning the dollars that we invest in these spaces into the results that we hope to see.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Commissioner Mouse. Commissioner Rubio?
Thank you. Thank you. Overall, I feel like there's a lot of great opportunities to take up this work. This is really good work that's happening. A couple things I wanted to bring up that I didn't see were, first, in my conversations with small businesses, what is the plan for extreme weather events? We're in a climate where we're seeing ice storms, we're seeing heat waves, and businesses are forced to close and send their employees home. That has a direct impact on their bottom line and creates operating gaps. So where is the plan for that going forward? Because I do believe it's going to be a new normal for us. So we need to just be thinking ahead about that. The other thing is, and to Commissioner Mapp's point, what analysis is occurring right now about what comes off our plate or where we're not getting the outcomes we want. So where are we pivoting so that we can retain and bring that capacity back into play for some of these future things. And then finally, for the next council, where is the overlay of, we had a presentation from Portland Metro Chamber a few weeks ago by one of the consultants who talked about how Portland is experiencing a micro recession right now. And so that overlay, how is that impacting this work going forward? Is it being discussed, talked about, and what's the plan during that 1 to 2 year time period until things start to pick back up again?
And so extreme weather events, I'm hearing one opportunity. And then I'm not sure I captured the second item that you were talking about, pivoting. Are you talking about pivoting around the new council structure?
No, I was talking about similar to what Commissioner Mouse was saying about how are we analyzing programs that are not meeting the outcomes? How are we bringing that capacity back into the mix so that we can get, move on other priorities or expand on other priorities, some of which we outlined, some which we're coming up with.
So keeping track of the metrics that are going to lead to success, keeping track of success?
More like how are we doing the analysis about what things need to change?
Okay.
Or what things are to keep going. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. Like we need to make a call on some things, I think, is what I'm saying.
If I may, I think we have struggled a bit in institutionalizing, reviewing our data to know if we're getting the outcomes we're looking for or not, and institutionalize a process by which you can change and make future investment decisions or future programmatic decisions that are different than we've always done. And we've struggled with that over the past few years. Actually, forever. I shouldn't say the past few years.
It's helpful. And then how are we handling the micro recession that you've learned about recently?
Plan for that. And the reason I say that is because we may know it and talk about it now, but how are we messaging that so that when work transitions to a new council and a new mayor and new leaders, that there's a recognition
of the state of things. Great. That's helpful. Mayor Wheeler?
Yeah, I'll be brief because I think people frankly get tired of hearing me talk, and I get tired of hearing myself talk. First of all, I would just say, if I were passing on some advice to the next people, I'd say the what is easy, the how is the challenge. It's easy to articulate what the problems are and what needs to change. The hard work that you have to lean into is specifically how do you do that? And that is going to require both the vision of the city council and the mayor and the brass tacks partnership of the executive branch in order to be able to structure programs that work. And we just heard a 35-minute presentation on some of the specifics, the how. And the council should really be thinking as much about that. There's plenty of people in the community who can articulate what the problems are. The city council needs to acknowledge those problems, but that is the very beginning of their work. Their work is actually the how. Second of all, going forward, I continue to be concerned about limited resources. And by limited resources, I don't just mean that people are at their limit in terms of taxation and how much revenue can be derived from the community, but also the fact that our cost structure continues to grow at a faster pace than our revenues. And that will forever create a gap that has to be managed. And there are strategies that the council could work with the executive branch to help close that gap. And we even heard some of those successes today, particularly things like overtime. We're starting to get a handle on that in our first responder units. The part people forget, span of control. Local government actually has a very limited span of control. The people on the city council may think that they control their own destinies. They will find that they are woefully misguided in that regard. we have fairly limited span of control, and partnerships are absolutely critically essential. We do not control behavioral health. We do not control substance use disorders. We do not serve as the public health authority. We do not get a lot of the federal funding that state governments get. We don't get Medicaid reimbursements. So we have to partner with other folks. What city government largely does, and I don't mean this as an insult, but we are the Band-Aid people. Outside of our specific span of control, we provide the Band-Aids. Whether it's homelessness, whether it is upstream public health or behavioral health issues, we're not fixing those problems. We are addressing the manifestations of those problems. And that's why we need to keep working with government, state government, county government, federal government, to actually go upstream and solve those problems. So I'd really encourage people who sit in these seats next year to think long and hard about not just how do you fix the visible manifestations of the problem, but what do you actually need to do to solve the problem, and who do you need to be on your team in order to be able to do that? Accountability and transparency, I actually think this council has been really good at that, to be honest. I feel like we all feel very accountable. When the microphone's not on, we share our stories of being held accountable. But we've also put systems into place where we're more transparent. And Skylar, you were talking about the apps that now help us understand specifically where a shelter bed is available on any given day. We've talked about the work that PMO has done in the impact reduction program, and PBOT has done around some of their dashboards. That work is obviously a priority of yours, Michael, and that's going to continue. Challenges for this city. Virtual employment. Our industry mix is one that tends to favor virtual employment as opposed to in-person employment. That's something we're going to have to reconcile as we think about future economic development. Online commerce will always be a threat to our commercial and retail core. It's true in every city, but it's something that we will, again, have to be mindful of. We have these fantastic neighborhood business districts, and all of them are at risk from what happens online in terms of online commerce. And I would just encourage us to continue to lean into our competitive clusters. There are some industries we are more competitive in and have more natural advantages, and there are other industries that we don't. And so we should focus our limited resources on those clusters where we have the opportunity to be successful. And that's what I would say as far as today. Thanks.
Great. So just to kind of reflect back, it sounds like you're sort of agreeing that there's implementation how opportunity here to really focus on not just what needs to change, but really how it changes. And then
at the risk of sounding like a jerk, we can't own all the problems because we can't solve all the problems.
Right.
We should focus on what we actually can do with the resources, the expertise, and the legal authority that we have. And beyond that, we have to build stronger partnerships. The constant battles with other jurisdictions to try and get them to work with us needs to come to an end. And that's just going to be personality and leadership.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate it. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Just to clarify, do you just want the first bullet point answered, or do you want all of them answered? Right. Okay. So in terms of opportunities across the board, I think there's greater appreciation for the interdependence between the city, county, and state on some of these more complex problems. That is an opportunity for all three. People used to ignore the county. They no longer ignore the county. And the county is important across the board on a whole host of these issues. In terms of opportunities for new administrators, well, one, this presupposes that the priorities articulated here are shared by the next mayor and the next council. And I'm going to be a little bit smug. That's on you guys to figure out how to. That's your job to figure out if these priorities are articulated by the next mayor and next council. I will say on homelessness and crime, there's substantial community support for confronting these issues very directly in a way that should be really galvanizing for government. And that's true for your administrators, for your next mayor, and for your next city council. So just lean in with the wind that's already out there in the community. Don't hold back. I think you have more of an opportunity to confront those issues right now than in prior years, frankly. And that's just because of the way what's going on outside of City Hall and the way the community has shifted on these issues. Advice to elected officials on these, again, I echo what I just said. The community shares a couple of these wholeheartedly. As to the next mayor, they're likely up here already, and if it's one of my colleagues, they know where to find me for that advice. For city council, it is, you go in with best laid plans, and then you get to the reality of how long it takes to implement things. And again, there's a lot of good work that is underway on a couple of these core issues, so lean in on that work. It would be my recommendation in terms of how to best avail yourself of the opportunities.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gonzalez. It sounds like leaning also into community partnerships in addition to the other public entity partnerships is something that you would focus on.
I would lean in on what ordinary Portlanders are saying crystal clear on homelessness and crime. Community partners, I mean, there's a whole industrial complex out there that purports to speak on behalf of everyday Portlanders. I would go talk to Portlanders, listen to them, and man, are they focused on homelessness and crime right now.
That makes sense. Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, Meredith. I would start by seizing this great opportunity that just like the job description of the governance system has changed, that was directed by the voters were also asking for job descriptions to change from the bureaucracy. That's my opinion. Because, so let's seize that opportunity, let's get creative, let's get innovative. There's really not any system currently where people are saying, the local government, the county, the city, metro, the state are just performing on the highest level. And so I'm really comfortable with my taxes going up because I'm seeing this great return on investment. We all know that was me being cynical because what we're experiencing, and this is a baseline thing that we should all get on the same page about, is that your average Portlander is upset who's paying more to live here and receiving services that are less pleasing to them than in the past when they spent less money to live here. So we have to be really honest about the fact that our budget challenges are going to be, where's the revenue going to come from if this continues? So I think that's really important. I think that the culture, which is failing, has to not just talk about continuous improvement, but actually do it on a daily basis. So the different entities, and this is one of the challenges, if the city and the county and the state are on different pages, there's not a lot of efficiency with how we're spending the money that we receive. So we have to get honest about what the problem is, all of those entities, and then start paddling in the same direction so the investments actually do something as opposed to going against one another. And so people would like to see that basic efficiency from the money that we collect from them. When you implement a continuous improvement culture, it means that you are always clear about what the goal is, what the targets are, and how we're measuring that. And then when we see the measurements, the data, we actually respond to it. We're seeing some of these promising practices. I know I took a lot of political will to try to get that established with the permitting process, and that's been helpful. When I had Safe First Villages, the reason why we have proof points is because we insisted upon that. The system at the county could care less about that, so we had to create that on our own. So all of these were created out of innovation and of people who are leaders. And I think that the workers on the ground will respond to this if we include them. So this isn't a put down of the big picture workforce. It's that we haven't had the ability to communicate that to the workforce from those on the ground where the wisdom is, all the way up to the leaders. So it's really a big opportunity for culture change at the city, at the county, at the state. People are not happy. most of us are out there campaigning. We get to hear about this all Labor Day weekend. So that's why some of us might sound a little bit alike. So yeah, the public servant culture, really getting back to public service. I think we listen to the complaints internally, and more importantly, we listen to the complaints of those that want money from us more than we listen to the complaints of those who are actually providing us resources. Maybe it's because I come from the revenue side in my career, but if the revenue's not coming in, eventually we're all in a world of hurt. So we have to continue to focus on get to the why. Why are people leaving? And I haven't heard that addressed today. And I'll try to stay away from the details of what I heard. And I do appreciate what I heard from the administrators today. We're program rich. We don't need new programs. And last thing we need are new nonprofits. But we need is a system that works. So we're program rich and system poor. A lot of people don't want to invest more money in the enterprise called the city, the county, the state, because they're so tired for decades of seeing us, like mental health is a great example, where we spend almost as much as any state in the country, yet we continue to lag behind, like between 45th and 50th in results. No one wants to invest in that after a while. And then let's remember that arts and music is a part of the economy, and I didn't hear enough mentioned about that. And so, $1 spent in the arts, there's $12 from those around them. We all know that this summer's bright spot is the evening and weekend economy, and that's because of the good work of my colleagues and working together to activate spaces. So we activate those spaces downtown, suddenly Nordstrom's has one of their best days in a while. So we have to look at that equation and continue to feed that. So if we don't continue to invest in the arts, we're really being ignorant about what it does, about how to stimulate the economy. And then I think all of us know this. If we don't continue to improve on public safety, which is the big elephant in the room, is always that we are stymied and confused on what to do about this drug crisis. I don't think that everything escalated in homelessness after COVID because of anything, but our response was different once COVID started. Like, we didn't do anything at the county. We followed public safety rules to perhaps a fault. Like, it lasted a long time. And so we got way behind on how to respond. And so we're spending a lot of time cleaning up. So I really think it's about honesty and identifying problems, and then measuring goals, and then coming to the table with some humility that we're failing, and that all we can do is continue to try to improve. And once people see us being public servants that are accepting the honesty of the problem, and we're actually doing something that's getting traction, I think you're going to see people wanting to be a part of the Portland story again. But I'm just currently just it's challenging to see how many multi-generational families that have lived here for again, multi-generations over 100 years that are exiting our city, that have always provided a lot of strength for us. So we have to figure out why. And so when we talk about why housing's down, investments are down, it's because of our reputation. This summer has a chance to turn it around. People that have come to Portland this summer are actually saying good things about us. That was not the case last summer and the summer before. That's why our investment reputation is down nationally.
And so I am hearing some sort of themes here, and it sounds like one of the themes is measurable goals and how they get executed, and if they don't get executed, how the pivots happen. Does that seem kind of
more nimbleness, more agility when they're not working. And when you have some partners that are getting paid a lot, that sometimes that's uncomfortable. So we need to see if we have partners who have the resilience to actually admit that this isn't working, and then work with government to pivot and to keep improving. That's what the R&D does in the private sector, and they, of course, don't survive unless they meet the bottom line. We have to think a little bit more like an enterprise. I know we're saying that word, but in enterprises, they have that innovation, that creativity, that resilience, that's what I'm missing sometimes in the culture.
And I'm curious if anyone kind of has a different view. It sounds sort of across the board like folks think that a measurable goal execution system is a benefit to the city and is an opportunity for the city, how things get actually executed and implemented. Is there kind of a dissenting view on that?
I would say that that's correct. and I think there's a gap in our process. You know, we all get together and we create budgets, and maybe even as part of our budget process, we create key performance indicators and whatnot. I don't know if we ever have a meeting where we take a look at the relationship between our investments and our key performance indicators and what actually happened in the real world. You know, we got some talented administrators over there who I think could help us think it through. And I think to be fair, I think we have had, I'm looking over at Mike Myers over in public safety, and I think we have had some detailed discussions about how we can go about tweaking programs to reach our goals. And looking at PREA in the infrastructure space, I think that kind of happens informally, commissioner to commissioner level. But if you're trying to manage the entire enterprise for 640,000 people, you know, $6, $7, $8 billion a year, we don't do that systematically, which I do think is someone's job moving forward. It's certainly definitely part of what the deputy city administrators should do. And then it's interesting and certainly council has a role there too.
Yeah, it also seems like there's sort of themes going on across the board around being transparent and honest about when goals are met, when they're not met, having some humility when they're not met, being able to pivot when they're not met, and then also building partnerships both through other public entities and the energy in the community that you spoke about, Commissioner Gonzalez, to fill those gaps when you're trying to meet the goals. Does that feel kind of like another overlap?
My point is we have to chase practices at work as opposed to the political system, which is the lobby comes and chases money and then asks you for that money. And then where I'd rather see is that we look at data that shows where practices are working, and we listen to the advice from all of you that should be close to it, and then we fund and invest in those practices at work, and then we find partners who are willing to actually play with us in that type of humility and that type of service, that public servant heart that we need right now. Because our city is still in a crisis. And when you travel around the country, it's always a little bit more noticeable on how far behind we are about coming back from whatever that was a few years ago.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
I'd like to move on to the second question, and I will read it to you all. And I'd like to start with Commissioner Rubio, if you're comfortable starting us out. What are the barriers to making progress, and how can we address those barriers?
What are the barriers to progress, and how do we address those barriers?
And I'm maybe kind of thinking about it as you've all articulated some vision. What do you think are going to be the biggest challenges for the new council coming in towards executing that?
Well, I think definitely an opportunity is that we'll finally have administrative focus and the ability to look across the entire enterprise, and also finally start looking at apples to apples comparison in terms of implementing budgeting standards, for example, outcomes analyses, et cetera. But I think the challenge will be that we won't be able to get there immediately. It's not going to be a light switch. It's going to be a process. So I see as a potential challenge that as we are still experiencing the challenges of our budget and the challenges of outside market forces we can't control, that we're also going to be doing this very internal, painstaking steering of the ship in a new direction. While also having to make tough decisions internally while we do it. So I think that having a very clear vision about where we're going so that we can stay the course during that challenging transitional period. I also think a challenge is that we could potentially have several very new folks all working together for the first time on top of that. So hopefully it's a healthy challenge that that we can lean into and figure out, but it's important to name them, I think.
So kind of, it sounds like you're speaking to, on the one level, the patience to actually execute and not continually continuously make change, so it kind of undermines execution. Is that part of what you're saying?
Maybe that's part of it, but I think just a recognition that we have several challenging scenarios that are overlapping right now, and that are unusual, and probably once in a generation, all happening on top of each other. So having that clear vision and clear focus, I think is going to be essential. And then also having some shorter term strategies that we can move on quickly to provide that relief or to provide that support, in particular small businesses and neighborhoods where they need that to see progress. In the meantime, while we reach those longer goals, we have to have a mix of the short, medium, and long-term strategies together.
Mayor Wheeler?
I liked my answer before, so I'm not going to revise it, but you're just adding one challenge to the mix. And the only way you can solve this challenge is through being successful and continually sharing with the public. And that is that people have an increasingly dim view of the very institutions that people used to turn to for some degree of stability. The media, academia, faith communities, and yes, government. And the only way to turn that around at this point, I think, is just to keep plugging it forward, making progress, and then being clear about what that progress is. And then I would just add that to the other things that I said before. People, as you come into city council, you're joining an unpopular institution. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And so really the power of personality, the power of persuasion, the imperative to continue to deliver what the public demands that the council delivers, that is the path, I think, going forward, because you need the public support. And I agree with what Commissioner Ryan said earlier. The public support isn't there, and we know that from polling data. Then all the other stuff I said earlier.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
We have financial constraints that aren't going to get any easier in coming years. So any agenda is going to be a prisoner to what resources you have to deploy. The interdependence on other governments that are essential in making progress on these key issues, our declining national reputation and declining population impacts not just the economic future of the city and its ability to fund these initiatives, but also the spirit of the city and its sense of self. And that's a kind of the animal spirit of the city of Portland right now. I think it's a little bit better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago, but it's at the lowest points in general in my adult lifetime. And that impacts a whole host of things. We used to believe we were a city that works. A lot of us don't believe that right now. And that's inside this building and that's out there in the city. And that's a problem in itself. Mayor Wheeler spoke to the lack of trust in institutions, and that does become a factor here.
Did you say a city that works? We used to believe we were a city that works.
Yes.
And what does that mean to you?
Means on just core services, there was assumption of functioning, and that this government was doing more things right than wrong in servicing its citizens. And that's really in question right now in terms of general perception. I'd say that both out there and in here, but it's part of it is, we get somewhere along the line, we got so focused on every national and international issue, and we stopped focusing on local delivery of services. And I think that's part of the issue. But that lack of confidence is a challenge in itself. And then, I think you have misalignment inside of government all the time. And I don't know that that goes away with the new form of government. You know, I couldn't be more different than my predecessor who sits in the seat, and you have a government bureaucracy that has to adjust to very different electeds and different priorities. That doesn't go away. That's just the nature of government. I mean, that's, and so I can sound somewhat cynical when we talk about shared priorities, because the next priorities are going to be set by the next mayor and by the next council. I think a lot of what's on here is reflective of what I hear from voters and what you're consistently seeing in polling. So that's the good news. Hopefully that's reflected in the next council and in the next mayor. But one of the inherent barriers of developing strategic plans with KPIs in a governmental context is every 2 years your government changes a little bit, and that the people setting those priorities changes a little bit. And if you don't have continuity in the values that they're bringing to the table, like your strat plan either gets completely thrown out or is going to need to materially adjust. And I think one of the long-term planning questions for this government are what are the components that are generational and, in infrastructure, they talk about the 100-year decisions. How do you kind of make those immune to the variance in political winds? And at the same time, adjust those parts of government that need to adjust more quickly to where Portlanders are. And that's I don't know if that's a barrier, but it's a challenge. You got different time frames where right now we're moving, as fast as this government is moving, we're moving faster than the county, we're moving faster than state on the core issues of homelessness and crime. I have zero doubt about that we are the fastest moving local, government confronting these issues in the state of Oregon, without question. And we're still not moving fast enough for the majority of Portlanders on those core issues. And, but 100-year infrastructure, we probably shouldn't be moving too fast. We probably shouldn't be adjusting that on the most recent wins out there.
So is one of the sort of tensions, how do you balance stability, the long-term planning with the changeover in government, with the changeover in ideas, with new generations, and with problems that in the short term need a solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the barriers is just inherent in a democratically elected government, that that you're going to have change in folks sitting in the seats every 2 years, and they are there with an agenda that they just sold to voters, and so to ignore that is at the peril of the folks sitting in those seats at some level. But then you also have other things that you want to make immune to, whatever silly promises someone running was making out there, and that we protect that over kind of a 100-year cycle. And that's just an inherent tension in any local government. I don't think that's unique to these priorities or to this government. I just think that we just have to recognize that strat plans are great. They're important for organizational life, but this is always going to be subject to political processes, democratic processes, and trying to marry those two is just an inherent tension.
Well, Meredith, these are great questions. Why don't we just use an example of the issue that's causing the most heartache for our market here in Portland, the county, and the state, and that's the influx of cheap poisonous drugs that are just causing so much pain in our city, and that's why our reputation's down. It's making it difficult to get economic traction. And across the country, everyone's dealing with this, but there's only a few cities that get called out for being so slow to respond. So why are we so slow to respond? Why is government looking at something that everyone can see with their plain eyes and then being so, in their opinion, slow to respond? And then last week we had that meeting with the county on the deflection center. I don't know about you, but I didn't leave with a lot of confidence that we're moving with much urgency. Just the word itself, deflection. So I left that meeting looking at the number one issue facing our market, not in the last few months, for the last few years, and how slow we've been to respond with urgency. Why is that? I think there's a host of reasons. One is we are lobbied by special interests who are working in this space and want to continue to see the flow of revenue come to them. And we're polite Portland, and we don't get down to the truth of what is really going on and how we need them to change in order for this to improve. And so I think we're being very quiet, unfortunately, about a response that's worthy of the emergency that's happening. And I look at people like Mike Myers and others, I know you're responding. But as the mayor said, we're a Band-Aid. And the Band-Aid is just, it's like it's bleeding outside of it. And so we need to do what's really hard, which is to get on the same page with the county. Why we weren't talking more about a withdrawal center to me was fascinating, because that's really what we need, is we need a withdrawal center with medical support. And then after people have an excruciating amount of time to go through that painful process, then they'd have the agency to talk about sobering up. But we can't even talk about it like anyone that's been in recovery from addictions knows how to speak about. That's a lot of people out there. So they're seeing us being in a universe that seems altered from reality at times by our slow response. And so that's our barrier, is that it's tough for us to get to doing something because we're held up by the slow walk that takes place in the bureaucracies that are multiple.
And so it sounds like in part what you're talking about is that some change relies on other agencies. Is that in part what you're...
We have to keep, I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez that we're the lead in facing reality of our local government institutions. And we have to continue to be that bright spot of practice, and we need to influence. So when people say you need to just get along with the county, no, we need to have some tension over this stuff, and we need to see some change. Just getting along to go along has got us here for the last 20 years. And so this didn't just happen overnight. It's just so painful now that we get to talk like this in a public setting.
So in part, maybe it's influencing those partners to create more urgency. Is that what you're speaking to?
I think what the hope is with the new form of government is I hope that elected officials, and I know I'm looking forward to this is why I'm looking to be a part of that, spending more time on the streets actually listening to the average family, the elder trying to age in place, that's paying their bills and just trying to enjoy the city of Portland. And so many of them haven't been enjoying it, and the expense that they're paying to try to enjoy it, that they have the means to go somewhere else, and that's been happening.
Commissioner Mapps?
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments from my colleagues. And as I started the day, my comments will be a little bit off base, but I think also intersect with the question we're trying to get at. I want to talk about economic development, and frankly, I think the audience for my comments are largely the deputy city administrators and the city administrator in the room. I think I have a unique perspective on this because I have served as your infrastructure commissioner over the last several years. One of the things that, let me start out broadly. I think we all know and are troubled by the fact that Portland's economic development has slowed compared to some of our peer cities. Frankly, part of that is that global capital is global. So you can invest $100 million in Portland, or you can invest $100 million in Denver or London or whatnot. And on that plane, Portland at the moment is not as competitive as we would hope to be. And that's unfortunate. I'm confident it'll turn around as some of the realities on the streets get better. But there is good news. Portland is on the verge of literally a New Deal. If you take a look at our public works projects, especially our mega public works projects, which are stacked up over the next decade, I count conservatively about $10 billion plus of projects which are literally shovel-ready. Things which will happen and will begin work within the next year or so. We have the IBR, we have the Burnside Bridge, we have the highway caps, we have the Superfund cleanup, and we have the water filtration plant. Frankly, my prediction is over the next decade, the fuel which will drive Portland's economic recovery will be these public works projects. And that's great news. Now, here's the bad news. We are not ready for this. Our workforce is not ready for this at all. We will need tens of thousands of folks out in the streets. They will not, Mr. Mayor, be doing this work from home. They will be out in the river, and out in Albina and out in the field doing real work in the real world. But frankly, our workforce is not ready for this. Here, I want to pause and talk about some of the opportunity here. Number one, let's say this is $10 billion. It's going to be a lot more, but let's just call it $10 billion to keep the math easy. Huge driver for our economy. Let's say we get the contracting piece of this right. So if even 10% of this work goes to businesses, to women and minorities, we will have done more to make our economy more equitable than probably Oregon has seen in the history of our state. That's really exciting. At the same time, I'll tell you, as the commissioner in charge of Public Works, I'm literally at the planning tables for many of these projects. And one of the things that we see as we think about implementation is the workforce is not there. Literally, for some of these projects, I'm sitting down talking to my colleagues at the federal level, at the state level, my colleagues over in Washington State. We got to break ground within the next 400 days, and we have to think about things like importing workers from out of state. And as we think about importing workers, we go, oh, well, they need a place to live, so we need to think about housing for these workers. And we need to think about childcare services for these workers. And it frankly breaks my heart that we are not thinking about, or we're not spending enough time thinking about how we get, the kids who are started school last week and this week doing this work. Because frankly, that's the workforce that needs to be there. And one of the things that kind of scares me to death a little bit as we move into the new form of government is that I'm not clear who on the city side sits in on those meetings and tries to solve that problem. It'd be very easy for that to get diffused across. This is, the Water Bureau can deal with its workforce problem, and PBOT can deal with its workforce problem, and BES can deal with its workforce problem. But frankly, if we don't take an integrated approach to this system, all of these projects could, number one, become much more expensive because of labor problems and just kind of fall apart. I'm looking across the street at a county building, and I was reading in the newspaper today about how the sheriff's office is having a challenge being able to accomplish some of their goals because they just can't hire the people. And if we don't get this right, I think we run the risk of, number one, missing our next economic boom, number two, missing the opportunity to really make our economies more equitable, and number three, losing, I think, one of our greatest economic resources or opportunities that's come around in a long time. When I say this is a new economic New Deal, or new deal for Portland, it literally is. Part of this has to do with what's happening at the federal level at this particular moment in time. We have to take advantage of this between public works, economic development, and prosper. I'm not really sure who's managing this space and preparing for this problem, but I know if we do not prepare for this problem, it will not fix itself. So I think that's what I want to say on that.
Mike, do you have any thoughts about how that's being addressed, or comments?
I beg your pardon?
Do you have thoughts about how the recruitment issue that Commissioner Mapps has spoken to, is there a plan for that?
No, Commissioner Mapps has, I think, rightfully identified one of the biggest challenges that all industries have, including government, and that is getting a workforce that's ready for what might be or will be huge investments over the next decade for sure. I think Oregon as a state has a pipeline problem. We haven't emphasized the trades, and that there's a huge opportunity with the cost of a four-year degree to emphasize the trades in this state, and we haven't taken advantage of that. And that's me from a former life, but I think there's an opportunity there. I think the commissioner has rightfully identified a huge challenge that we're going to have. And it's not just us. Those will be contractors that do most of the work on that. And yet, we don't have a contractor market here that could do $10 billion worth of work. And so they will be coming from elsewhere to here. And how do we make the ground fertile, housing, childcare, whatever it is, so that a certain percentage of those workers stay and become Portlanders? And so it's a huge opportunity, and I don't think we're being strategic necessarily in how we attack it.
Mike, if I can follow up, who in the city grapples with that problem? Is that a city administrator thing?
It's Donnie's fault.
Okay, good. I noticed he wasn't in the room.
And I apologize.
Is he hiding behind the pillar?
Yeah,
There you
he's
go.
trying to hide. No, it literally is all of our problems, Commissioner. And this,
So just tell me what the next mayor should do in order to solve this problem. Like when you sit down and you pull together your city administrator.
And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, Mike.
okay.
No. I mean,
okay,
everyone here needs to hear this.
everyone at this dais at one point or another, I think even this morning, has said something about our relationship with other governments in this state, whether it's the feds, the state, metro, the county. We can't solve a workforce development problem by ourselves. It's a big workforce market, and we will need the state government to, through their education work, to emphasize CTE at our high schools and make sure that community colleges are well supported to produce those kinds of workers. And so that's just one example of the partnership that'll be necessary. And to be honest, we've been so overwhelmed, I think, trying to innovate on the ground in our own community for the last 5 years, that it has been a big challenge for us to play the bigger game with all of the other governments that we need to interface with to be successful. And I'm hopeful in the future we can do better at that. And I hope a future mayor sees that as a priority.
If I could jump in, and this, by the way, is a great discussion, so thank you. I think there's more we could do with our education partners. PCC, I think, has a huge role to play here. The trade programs through the trades, I think they have a role to play here. But I agree with what Commissioner Mapp said, that this requires some forward thinking now in order to be ready when these projects are ready to be done.
For my colleagues who spend less time in the infrastructure space, you should know that, we hope to literally be in the water building the interstate bridge, like basically within the next year or so. The water filtration plant, we're building that now. Superfund cleanup is happening now. This is not an abstract, as long as I've been in Portland government, we've talked about workforce development, often it's abstract or whatnot, but these projects are funded now and they're happening now, and we're not ready to staff them.
So the challenge is just too many jobs, too many opportunities.
Yeah, which is, a great problem for Portland to have.
Right.
I've been around long enough that has not historically been our problem.
Yeah.
But there's some urgency here.
Appreciate it from all of you. I'd like to move on to the third question, and I'd like to start with Commissioner Gonzalez, if we can. What are your biggest lessons learned about addressing Portland's top priorities?
Well, I think Commissioner Ryan spoke on a variant of this, but just the intensity that special interest groups can mobilize on tough issues. And at the same time, how relatively small a group they speak on behalf of in terms of ordinary Portlanders. So there's this, there are folks that are quite good at mobilizing at City Hall. They're not all that great at winning out there. And that's just a remark, there's a dissonance there. And that's on all tough issues. And you look at crime and homelessness, I mean, you've got so many pieces to that equation, particularly the overlay with drug policy and Measure 110. I mean, these are meaty, complex topics. And, but but there's some voices that are used to being heard on those topics and calling the shots. And boy, if you cut against that, they mobilize. They're quite loud. They know how to shut down council sessions. They know how to flood our emails. They know how to trash us online and in the press. And yet they don't speak for a majority of Portlanders. And if you listen to, so I guess on the front I was kind of surprised by how much they mobilized, and by the same token, how ineffective sometimes they are in moving the general population on those core issues.
So it sounds like in your spot, you were a little bit surprised about how what you hear in your office might not represent the overall community as well as special interest groups try to. Is that right, or am I getting that wrong?
I don't even think they try. I mean, it's just, they have an interest that they're pursuing, and it's not. I say that with less judgment than that sounds, but there's very few groups out there trying to talk for the majority, and that it's just not the way things mobilize.
And you have to maybe make more effort to hear from the community than you had anticipated?
Yeah, and I mean, I think some of the things I thought when I came in the communities continued to be there, and so, because even when we talk about how you listen to the community, I mean, there's a whole apparatus that purports inside this building to engage with the community, and it's not very scientific. Sometimes it's, someone in the bureaucracy going and listening to the folks that tells them exactly what they want them to tell them. And so I could feel my colleague, Commissioner Ryan, perk up when you asked that way, and I'm not sure, I think it's that subject of how you engage with the community, that's actually, there's a lot of art and there's a lot of science, but what's done in the status quo there leaves plenty to be desired. I mean, there's plenty of forum shopping and going and talking to the folks you want to hear from on any tough issue. And that is not the best way to get real community feedback as to where a majority of Portlanders are.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes. No, thank you, Meredith. Yeah, when did I perk up? Well, I think when we use the word community, we use it in a way that I think not everyone understands what we mean by it. So I'll just, first, my answer to this, what's your biggest lesson, is to do something. Do something. And when you do something and it matters and it's going to actually get population results and improve the system, you're going to have a lot of heat come at you, especially from special interests that are a part of the political bureaucracy system and benefit financially from it. That's just how it's built. And so you have to be, I think, at this time in Portland's history, you want to have leaders that have the courage to not worry about that, but actually just focus on big picture community who aren't lobbying you as much as just trying to survive here and want to continue to love their hometown. So a great example of that would be, I have so many, I think I'm sure have the best stories in all this, but I'm trying to build the Safe for Us villages in 2021. The community in the neighborhoods, it was brutal, but that was authentic. They had images of the ones that the mayor and Hardesty put up with the best intentions in Old Town and Water Avenue, and no one wanted those in their neighborhoods, but that's all they had in their mind were those ungoverned camps that were not very attractive to anyone that drove by and lived near them or worked near them. So the thought of that coming into their neighborhood was a pretty tough proposition. Of course, that's not what we were bringing to their neighborhood, but in 2021 on Zoom meetings with 400 people, most of the neighbors were riled up to not want that. That was okay. That's like what you're supposed to accept. That's part of your job as a public servant. What was astonishing to me is the lobby internally connected to some of the houseless contractors, providers of the county being against it. It's like, why would you be against something that homeless people say they want? Why would you not want us to spend? We had to spend ARPA dollars because, of course, we couldn't get the money that the taxpayers approved that said they wanted things like this. However, we did, fortunately, got some ARPA money to do it. And the fact that they were against it and they slow-walked it at the county and called villages dustpans, like that was the culture of the joint office who we were supposed to partner with to build these. That's the kind of shock that you experience as a leader, is when there's internal organized opposition to do something in an emergency. And we have to be honest and call that out, and we have to keep fighting for the people who want to continue to love this city and invest in it, and not cave in to some of the pettiness that often occurs when you're trying to be a leader.
Can I add one thing after Commissioner
Absolutely.
Ryan? I did not anticipate what I'd broadly call political violence on some of these tough issues. I did not expect my parents' car to get set on fire. I did not expect Dan Ryan's house to be vandalized 10 times because he didn't defund police. These core difficult issues, I didn't see that on my dance card, that was accepted in political rhetoric and in modern Portland. I'll let Mayor Wheeler speak for his own experience, but I look at it, what I know about it, with disgust. And didn't see that coming. That's a barrier, and I guess it's a lesson learned that there is a segment that can rationalize that behavior. It's a very, very small segment that actually does it. It's a slightly bigger segment that can rationalize it and justify it. That's a lesson learned. I don't know that it fundamentally changes the way we approach the proper approach to policy making. Just have to pay for more security. That's the lesson learned. But.
And then Commissioner Ryan, it sounds like another lesson learned for you is keep going, take action, even in spite of that kind of opposition.
Yeah, don't give up. 2 years later, the same people that are against it can't stop lifting it as a promising practice. So just stay the course. Don't give up.
Commissioner Mapps?
I think the lesson that I want to underscore for future policymakers and current policymakers is that our new form of government, which is organized around city administrators, is a better system than the system that we have used for the past 100 years. I think it's also important to remember that this system here in Portland is about 10 weeks old. So there is a lot of work to be done in terms of figuring out how to make this work in the context of Portland. But we are clearly on the right track, and it intuitively makes sense. Solving hard problems is almost always by definition an interdisciplinary challenge. If you think about homelessness, in order to solve homelessness, you need the joint office, you need the housing office, you need the fire bureau, we need PSR, sometimes we need police. Historically, it's been hard to get all 5 of those programs on the same page, pulling in the same direction. Now we have an opportunity to do that, but we are literally functionally at day one in terms of figuring out what that means. Frankly, this is one of the parts of charter reform that I'm most excited about. When you do something the same way for 100 years, a lot of habits get ingrained. We have a real opportunity to, I think, get better in this space. I've always felt, frankly, that the city could do better in terms of taking advantage of our analytical powers and technology, and I sure hope the folks sitting over there will use this as an opportunity to really move into the 21st century in terms of how smart we are and the tools that we use. So I hope that we lean into that. And I also, again, want to emphasize that in the new form of government, the job that those folks have is different from the job that, these city commissioners will have. As a city commissioner, it's your job to basically figure out what your North Star is for the city. And if you can get your 7 votes for that, we all salute and move in that direction. And then our city administrators are charged with figuring out how to make that happen. I sure hope that our future elected officials give those folks the space to make that happen. It's really easy, I think, to get diverted on special projects, let's say. But if we're going to have a functioning city in the 21st century, we really have to build more robust systems than the ones we have today. And I think everyone in this panel up here has been around for a while. We all know that, frankly, we've seen the challenges facing our city get more challenging over time, which you wouldn't think that that would necessarily be the case. So very optimistic about the path that we're on. Council is going to have a lot of work to do to figure out what their new jobs are. And frankly, one of the pieces of work that we also have is to figure out how our deputy city administrators and our city administrator will do their work moving forward. But I hope you do it with innovation and I hope you do it with innovation and with collaboration and with an awareness that you really are kind of driving our Portland's second founding in some important ways.
And I'm realizing I got a notice that we have a little bit of limited time, but I'd love to hear from Commissioner Rubio and Mayor Wheeler about lessons learned.
Great, thanks. So I want to first commend the mayor on doing the work for setting those overarching council priorities. I believe they were really, really foundational to everything we did. They set the North Star for us. We aligned our budget decisions around that. And I think it's ultimately the reason why we made significant progress. So for me, a lesson learned would definitely be to keep doing that kind of exercise. Also, I think another lesson learned is having a lot of transparency and constant communication with the public. I think that's critical on anything we do. Often when we're out and about, or even in our office, when we're asked about a certain decision, sometimes community feels blindsided or neighborhoods feel blindsided when in fact there's been ongoing discussion. So having the ability to, at critical decision points or changes or dialogue, even if it's a nuance that we might feel is small, I think the public, it's helpful for them to know. It helps them understand the complexity of issues and also the trade-offs in decision-making as we ultimately arrive at that point. So I think those are important things. And then going back to the theme of interdependence with other entities outside of the city, yes, agree that our success is dependent on others on some things, and that can be really challenging. And I want to also look at another dimension of that. We also, I believe, leave so much on the table when it comes to some catalytic opportunities that we haven't taken advantage of yet when we partner. For example, I think about this a lot. We have several universities in our city that could be tremendous partners, and we just haven't figured out, or we don't have the capacity. So figuring out how we have the capacity to partner with key institutions that have vested interests where we align. There's really tremendous workforce opportunities to look into things around, for example, we're doing the Clean Industry Hub in partnership with PSU. There's arts and culture. We have so many universities here that do partner or would like to partner in more ways. We have schools of social work, several different, programs that could definitely, we could strategically work with. It would be great to have the Higher Ed Coordinating Commission as well involved in that, because their main focus is workforce development. So I think that's something that would be really worth exploring. And then finally, having the city align internally to speak and engage externally with one voice as one city. That has been a challenge since day one, since I've been in office, and having multiple bureaus continuously doing their own comms can be hard and challenging for the public, and that it's incumbent upon them to seek out the information when they should just know that they're speaking with the city and the city is engaging with them, and we're internally aligned. And I think that restores and rehabilitates trust in government by the community.
Appreciate it. And Mayor Wheeler, I do want to hear from you, and then I want to open it up for questions
Yeah,
about the action
I'm
plan.
going to be very brief. Frankly, the question of lessons learned, I started with some of what I thought were the key things that the next council needs to understand. In terms of the rest, I need time to process it, honestly, and it'll take me a while. I could write a book on the subject of what I've learned. And I'll just tell you this, politics has changed a lot. When I started 18 years ago as county chair, it was a completely different world. Nationally, at the state level, certainly at the local level, everything has changed. And one of the key questions I try to reconcile is, as a political leader, do you change with the changing politics of the public, or do you stay the course? And where do you draw the line? Do you pick a North Star and stick with it, or as the body politic shifts, do you have an obligation as an elected representative to shift with the body politic? And I don't think I have a clear answer on that for you today. I will tell you that everybody knows I was very skeptical of this new form of government. I think one of the strong points is the creation of a strong executive branch working with an elected mayor. I think there is an opportunity to institutionalize some of the programming that up to this point has disappeared, been created and then disappears with changing the changes in the elected body. I mean, just as kind of a humorous note to Commissioner Gonzalez's point, I was elected. 2 years later, a commissioner was elected to run against my platform. And then a couple of years later, that commissioner then was unelected again. And so that was reflective, I think, of the immediate changes in the body politic. But then the question becomes, well, how do you do this? How do you have long-term investments that make sense for the city? How do you actually develop programming that becomes strong and resilient? And the answer is it doesn't reside with the city council. It resides with the city administrator and a professional staff that's around to see it through and maintain it and argue for continued funding of those programs. I think I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Can I just quickly add on to that, Barry? I think it will help. So I look at two of my colleagues this direction, the mayor and Commissioner Rubio, and it's a good example of where the long term does include handoffs that work. So the Safe Rest Villages were built, the handoff took place because the mayor, rightly so, when a new chair was elected, the mayor and the chair needed to see if they could recalibrate that relationship between the city and the county, and then the villages expanded and it took off. It was a healthy handoff of productivity. Same thing with Commissioner Rubio on the permitting work that our office led with MAPS as the co-chair of the task force. That handoff was successfully given to Commissioner Rubio. You saw high-functioning leaders, not political grandstanding. We are focused on getting results for the people as opposed to whatever else happens when the turnstile takes place in the body politic that's quite petty sometimes. Thanks.
I just really thank you all for your thoughts. I wanted to reflect some of what I captured from all of you and then open up questions if folks want to stay or have time about the action plans. It sounds like folks are talking about clear, measurable goals, implementation, transparency and honesty when results don't work, the ability to pivot and be agile, partnership and interdependence with other entities, and sort of the tension around communication with other entities and their responsibilities versus Portland's, listening to the community and the public and taking action towards listening to the community and the public. And then there are opportunities coming up to work with schools, to engage in contracting, and to make plans around that, to sort of set priorities for how you implement this advice. And so I want to, if I've missed anything there, I want to open it up and also for questions.
Could I just add one more comment?
Absolutely.
You raised, and a number of my colleagues have talked about listening to the public. Another positive thing about the new form of government is you guys, and I'm looking at the camera, you guys who will be on the new city council, you have a chance here to completely restructure the way that city government interacts with the public. And I'm assuming that now that we have district commissioners, that they will create a process whereby they regularly meet with their neighborhood associations, their local business district, concerned residents of their various neighborhoods, and then figure out how to bring that feedback back to the council at large and ultimately up to the city administrator. So there's an opportunity there, I think, to really think through at the council level, how do we want to interact with the public that we serve?
Thank you so much, Mayor. Are there any other comments or any categories I missed? Any questions about the action plan? No? Well, we are at 11:29, so, yeah.
Meredith, if I can, I want to thank you guys. When you design these things and you hope that you'll get a robust response, it doesn't always happen. And this is amazing stuff, amazing reflections on where you've been, where the city's been, some about where we're going and where we need to be going. And so I want to thank Mayor Wheeler, whose idea it was to have you all reflect on your time here, and just a very full conversation. So thank you.
Well, to be continued. And Meredith, thank you. Thanks, Colin. This is actually a really great discussion. Thank you. We're adjourned.
So appreciate it, all of you.